stand by me only if I'm right. I come out in triple darkness just to see the light. If I say it once, I guarantee I say it twice. If they love me, I ain't going out without a fight.
Everybody is always saying it. We always heard it when we were younger. We hear it all the time. I say it. What's wrong with these young people?
Oh,
Y'all heard that before?
yeah. And it was said about us probably.
It was said, and it was said about the generation before. You know, what's wrong with these young people? But it's a valid question. One of the things when we talk about what's wrong with young people, if we're in a self-reflective mode, we have to ask, what did we do to make sure our young people were prepared to survive in the world that they currently
T, tell the story about the elephant. The elephant.
Well, actually, I saw it on like, it was a History Channel, National Geographic, whatever it was. And so there was a village in Africa, and the villagers and the elephants had always coexisted. And, you know, elephants did their thing, villagers did their thing. But then poachers came along and started killing all the male elephants for the tusk.
Adult male elephants.
They was killing all the adult male elephants for the tusk. Next thing you know, the elephants was attacking the villagers and knocking over their houses and stomping them and killing them and all kinds of stuff. They realized was those young bull elephants had no adult males to show them how to behave and interact with the villagers.
The minister said that.
And
he
so
said
now-
he said that same thing.
Yeah, and so now they attacking them. And so in order to solve the problem, they had to reintroduce adult male elephants into the environment so that they would stop
To put things back
and
in
they
order.
would learn how to interact with the villagers. And so whether it's elephants or whether it's us, so when mass incarceration took all of our men, a lot of our men out of the community, these young kids growing up with no daddies, that's mad and hostile.
Yes.
Because he been gone, and now he coming back after 25, 30 years. I'm bitter, and I'm angry about that. And ain't nobody there to talk to me about what to do with that.
Yeah.
And so now, when I turn on the community, and I'm robbing and carjacking and selling dope or doing whatever I'm doing, what y'all talking about? Y'all done failed me.
Right.
Wow.
Ain't nobody here to check me with love.
And then you know what? And then we got the nerve to say to them, you're not thinking about your future. You robbed me of the ability to care about my future.
Thank you.
I've been robbed of the ability to care about my future.
Because I don't believe I have one.
Right.
I don't believe I have one.
Right.
How many times have we heard young people say, over and over and over again, I never thought I would make it to age 21. We have heard that over and over again.
That was me.
So, right.
Yeah.
So if you want to start correcting some of this behavior, we have to teach them how to see themselves in the future and that they can recreate the future selves that they want to be. You know, and I was talking about this earlier. It's a book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and it's called How to Be Your Future Self Now.
Oh yeah.
And it's talking about, you know, if you don't have a vision of who you want to be and what you can be, then the decisions that you make every single day on a day-to-day basis are going to be based on surface level things.
All right, thank you. So how do I get the vision, Joaquin? I grew up in the projects. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the projects. And you telling me if I don't get the vision, where am I get it from? I'm going to get it from school. I'm going to get it from, where am I get it?
Right.
Where am I going to get it, man?
The adult male elephants, us.
We gone, though.
I know. So you got to find one.
We got to find one. That's why I said earlier, we failed because we know this. The elephants know this.
Right.
And it's children that ain't got no bull elephant in their family. So forget that we was the village to our family, you know, Dr. Conway told us, hey man, you got to judge yourself by how many children you got your hands on outside of your family.
Yeah.
And society.
Remember he told us that?
That's right. I forgot about that.
He said, don't judge yourself by how many people you touching that you supposed to touch.
And society would tell you that we not needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you fighting that. I don't need no man. I don't need this. I can do this, that. I need a man for one thing. You know what I mean? I need a woman
That's
for
a
one
whole
thing.
nother problem.
So that's a whole nother issue,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. Hey, listen.
That attitude.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be quiet because
Why you gonna be
because
quiet?
they done
We not
tricked our
needed.
women into thinking they don't need us. This society has tricked black professional women into thinking they don't need black men. Too many of them. Not all of them. Way too many. And with the idea that society has allowed, even though they pay our sisters less, they have allowed more of them a pathway through their oppression to get there to be in a position where they think they don't need us.
They end up turning masculinity into toxic. It's really emasculating men. It's not. There is toxic masculinity that exists. Don't get me wrong, but it's an attack on masculinity. You know what I'm saying? You got toxic masculinity. Then you got I want to say bitch you out. I just
Dr.
said.
Umar call it beta males.
Yeah. Emasculating men.
Yeah.
Emasculating men. Echoing on the elephant story. Echoing on, I forgot who you said made a quote about our responsibility. I thought when we moved up to a newer neighborhood, my ex-wife was like, "You keep talking to these people. They don't like you. You think all these people are your friends and this and that and the other." I'm like, "What are you talking about, right?" So now we had younger children, right? So I'm moving to the neighborhood. I'm gonna get to know my neighbors. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get to know who you are.
Right.
Now I'm not foolish enough that everyone that I introduce myself or speak to is gonna be my friend.
Right.
You know what I mean, or my buddy. But as that bull elephant, hey, this is my family right here, right? We're going to be adjacent to each other, across the street, see each other every day, and my kids going to be on the bus with your kids. I'm going to speak. One or two things will happen. We may build a relationship, we may not. No big deal. But if you got any bad intentions, you're going to stay away from that Yates household, because I ain't no easy target, right? But what ends up happening is I'm at the park with my kids. If I see it's a little, I let kids do appropriate kid stuff. I build now I built these relationships. Now when I go to the school, outside of me coaching them in football and basketball for a number of years.
And you coach too.
Yeah. At least 15 years.
Both of them 17 this time.
Not 20.
Decade and a half.
Over 20 like that.
And so therefore, I'm trying, even though I'm not a perfect father, not a perfect husband, you know what I mean, by any ways, but I'm trying to create the best home life and then the best community for my kids. So when they do go out and play, they safe and secure.
Right.
And
Them
guess
John's
what?
kids.
Yeah, exactly. And guess
Yeah.
what? I'm looking out for your kids too, because now it's kids at the park, and my son would be like, Dad, did you know such and such did this and got in trouble? Like, what? Never showed me no disrespect.
Yeah.
So even when they was acting up, when I came around, they showed me enough respect and love because I was loving on them appropriately.
Yeah.
Showing, hey, come here, man, what's happening with you? They was on my team. You know, I may have coached them. They may have been in the neighborhood. I'm like, man, what you doing? What happened in school, man? Somebody told me about. You know, and so they showed me their love and respect. And hopefully someone would do the same with my kids as well. And that's what the bull needs to go and take care of some other calf sometime. Even if it's just a temporary.
Basically showing that the village is not limited to just your family, your immediate
That's
family.
right.
You know what I mean? Or how large it can be with regards to cousins.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and uncles,
bro.
and
So now I
stuff.
got people come just telling me stuff. The kids like, oh, who you? That snitching parent. Your friend told me. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah, and to this day, all three of my boys, basically adults. My baby's 18, but I got a lot of their friends' contacts in my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Yates, hey, Coach Yates, you know, and we had that relationship, and it's all love.
Yeah.
But that's what we
Absolutely.
have to do.
So I think what we want to talk about now is how can we, for the people who are watching this, help them recreate their own village in a small way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, obviously, and then collectively that grows, but like we gotta give them some tangible thing. This just happened. I wasn't thinking about no village, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Darius had a situation going on. It's always Darius.
Man, you dropping names again.
Yeah, I'm talking about him. He had a situation going on, and I called my mama and told my mama about it. And then I called Maine and told Maine about it. Well, I didn't call him to tell him. He called me and I told him. Sidebar. And then Darius called, or he texted the group text. tell Dad stop telling my business, like that, right? And my reply was, you ain't got no business. All right, you ain't got no business. But what I wanted to happen in that moment, I wanted him to understand that it's other people out here watching you and watching your behavior. And the reason you don't want it told is because there's some shame attached to your behavior. And that's why you ain't want it told. But guess what? I told it because I want you to know that that behavior is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to nobody in this circle. And these are some people that I know absolutely love and care about you and trust you, and they're going to pick up the phone. That's how he knew I told it, because each one of them called him. I was like, Dad, what's going on? What's going on? So and he don't want to explain it.
Right.
So he just like, tell Dad, don't tell my business. But the point is, when something going on that you ain't supposed to be doing, well, guess what? It's a village that exists.
That's right.
That's going to know about what's going on. And you need to know that you're being held accountable for your behavior and your actions within this village. And there's some people that's going to call you on it. And it's purely out of love. Purely out of love. And you got to understand that. So next time, you might be a little more mindful before you make some decisions. That's the whole thing. And it's all to help make him a better person.
Some people will see that as shaming him.
That was the conversation me and my wife had. She was like, well, how you know he going to come to you next time when something going on?
Right. The chance of that exists.
And I said, well, it was out of love.
Risk reward.
And I'm
reward.
not shaming him.
Oh, risk reward.
But guess what? Don't do that kind of behavior no more. How about that?
I think a lot of
and
times.
it won't be no next time.
And this the other
That don't sound good, but the principle is exactly what need to be said.
Exactly.
But it don't sound. It sounds horrible.
Now whether it applies or not, I
Yeah,
don't
because
know.
what you essentially saying is, I'm pointing out to you an ethical, moral issue that if you had not done that, we would not be at a place where we're talking about
Absolutely.
whether or not people had to know about it or not.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's,
I mean,
that's
and
exactly.
that's
and hopefully you don't do it again.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
And I'm quite confident you won't.
Right.
And that's why I felt comfortable telling it. Now go ahead.
Now I forgot. Now I mess with you. Anyway, this the thing. When you got a situation that's going on and you sharing it with people, my thought when I'm sharing something, excuse me, my thought when I'm sharing something is not to shame this person. It's just to be able to allow those people that I know that love and respect them to be able to equip me for being able to have this conversation and being able to point out some tools that I could use that's already in my bag, but being able to be fair about it. Because sometimes when I want to respond the way I want to respond, those people who I go to around me really show me how to go in another direction, which is more of a loving direction versus a
knee-jerk type.
Yeah. And so so in situations, if I come around and I say, Tyreek got this going on or whatever, what should I say to him?
Yeah, so you collaborating on how to deal with it.
Right.
But sometimes when we do things publicly, you can accept all this public praise and glory. But when you hiccup, you don't want to hear the being held accountable for that. I think that's what their point was in trying to do that. You know. And so when you're doing right, it's all good and it's all fine. But when you make mistakes, we're not telling the whole world all your business, but we're gonna hold you accountable because this is how we have. It's the standard. What Tomlin say? The standard is the standard.
Yeah.
And this is what we do here.
I used to go outside as a kid in the 70s and 80s, right? Do you remember who you were afraid of seeing you do something?
Yeah.
Huh?
They ain't got that fear.
It was a whole bunch of people, wasn't it?
Yeah. You didn't even know they were looking at you.
But what I'm saying was, You know how generally now you be like, man, I gotta move different. Like you knew you had to move different when you know it's a lot of eyes on you. And I'm not even talking about nothing bad. Wherever you are, and you know it's a lot of eyes on you. You have to be careful how moving.
Yeah.
In our neighborhood back then, when it was a village, you had to be careful how you was moving.
Yeah.
Right now, you let somebody say something to somebody's child out in the village.
Right. Even
That's
if,
you see
even
what I'm
if they
saying?
throw rocks at cars or whatever.
Listen, bro,
It don't
I
matter.
remember, man, my mom had this hoopty, right? And she might be mad at me. Now, she ain't gonna be mad. It's funny. She had this hoopty, man. You couldn't start the joint. It didn't start with a car key. If you had any flat object,
Little pair
a screwdriver, any key. So when I said I was wrong, it started with any key. Screwdriver, popsicle stick. If it didn't fray up
If it
enough,
ain't
if
break,
you could get it. And so I remember after school, man, I used to, you do deep, just dumb stuff, right? I said, you know what? I'm gonna start my mama car up. I was in the 5th grade. I said, I'm gonna start the car up. Cause I knew how to start it up. I didn't watch y'all start it up. Hey,
You
I
put your
don't
popsicle
need
stick
to go
on from
take your
school.
keys. I got right in the car after school, and I was sitting in there and cranked that joint up, man, and turned that joint.
You had to do like this.
I ain't touched the gas. I got scared. Then you get scared. I did it. You right? It worked. This dude, brother Bill, I'm gonna call him, come down the street, live at 2 buildings up. You know what I mean? Hey, what you doing is sitting? Get up out of that car. But tell your mom you was sitting up in that car, right? I was so scared. Man, I got up in the car, ran up in that. Man, you're 5th grade, right?
Yeah.
No, I got out the car, and then, I'm outside. So I got out the car. Somebody else seen me getting out the car. I'm going to tell your mama you was in that car.
Right.
Right? I go in the house, put my stuff out. Everybody, man, we playing ball back outside. Go out to the park. This lady from her balcony, you was in your mama car too.
That's the village.
Right? I'm going to be honest. Listen.
And how did you
Let me say,
respond?
listen. I ain't say nothing. I did whatever they told me to do.
Yeah.
I got scared. They saw me. And maybe the way I responded, nobody told on me. But do you think I got back in that car?
No.
Right.
Okay. And how do
Do you understand
Right.
what I'm
So-
saying?
yeah.
So now,
compare that
this
to
kid
today.
now, fuck you.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, motherfucker, you ain't my daddy. Tell me get out the car, bitch.
Right.
And then I come
right.
tell the mama, hey, excuse me, this what happened. Corey was in the car. I seen him, and I told him get out the car. And he cussed me out. And so I'm just coming to tell you, he was real disrespectful. Well, what made you think you could say something to him? The car don't even matter, brother.
Right.
That's what they say
If
now.
that- if
That's
that
what we
happened today,
dealing
right?
with.
If that happened
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
right.
That's what's going
Took the
on.
words out of my mouth. That's what I was going to ask. How you handle that when they react that way?
And that's why you don't have a village.
Yeah.
Cause
Yeah.
I ain't saying none of them kids. They got guns now.
Yeah.
They fight. Ain't nothing but guns now. I'm not saying nothing to them.
They got guns, and guess what?
And they'll use
They
them.
scared.
And they'll use them.
And a
11-year-olds.
scared person with a gun is dangerous. Please explain to him the metaphor for that. The seed.
Oh,
we
yeah,
were
yeah,
talking yesterday with brother.
Oh yeah, we talking about gardening, right? You plant the seed, you dig the hole, plant the seed, put some fresh dirt on it, water it, let the sun shine on it, water it, weed it, take care of it, right? And you tend to it, then you got to go do what you got to do. But sometimes when that plant comes out, somebody else is standing there. You know what I mean?
And getting all the
And
credit.
getting all the credit for all the work that you put in there. Right? And we come back to it, and he said, "Oh, thank you such and such for planting this into me, letting this grow out of me." And now as men, we got to understand we don't need all the credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
as
yeah,
long
yeah.
as the lesson is implanted, instilled in you, it's okay.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah,
But what you're talking about is a similar moral and value system within that community.
yeah.
Right? And you talk about the common denominator. We always talk about our God is our faith. That's it. But even if you don't believe, you got some sort of standards. We're going to look out for one another, man.
Right.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. And we got to hold each other accountable.
Right.
And when you don't, I got mine, you get yours. You stay over there. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Mom Murder used to say, hey, these fingers can't do too much. But when they're like this, you know what I mean? You can
They
do
fit.
so much more. And we are so disjointed.
Yeah.
So disjointed.
I remember. But back to what I'm saying, you know, the village is lost. When they say it takes a village to raise a child, well, if children not being raised, then we don't have a village, do we? Right. If they're not being reared in the way we feel like a community, if we say the community's gone. So in terms of that, man, what lessons from the village that resonated with us as men or young men growing into fathers that should have been passed down on for those of us that's in our late 40s and 50s, mid 40s in the 50s and 60s? What's missing from what we were supposed to pass on to the current generation if we're saying they're in a condition that we don't like right now?
I believe it's the lack of passing it on, passing on stories, passing on experiences, passing on the things that the generation before us went through. Mm-hmm. I was just thinking the other day when about like my mom's generation, right? And I'm like, yo, Mom, did you hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when you were growing up or whatever? Or Minister Farrakhan? You know what I'm saying? It's like, why is it the past? I'd say probably the past 5-10 years, Mom has kind of accepted and appreciated the minister a lot more. It's like, yo, what has taken you so long when this man has been around for over 40 plus years, mm-hmm. as far as since the absence of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but since the 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s, the mm-hmm. height of the the civil rights movement and so on and so forth, was it only King? Of course, I know they were going to give Kings so much publicity and whatnot, but of course, when you see some of the footage of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and interviews and that sort of thing, it's like, Mom, was he watching television? What and mm-hmm. she's like, well, I did hear Muhammad Ali, and of course, as prolific as he was, that would stand to reason.
Right.
But I just was wondering. So I believe that generation didn't do, and I commend JG about this as well, on the importance of sitting with our elders, sitting with our great uncles, our grandparents and whatnot, mm-hmm. and talking to them and hearing the stories and whatnot that they can share that I think would benefit the generation.
Absolutely.
And I believe. Well, since at least I didn't experience it, it was difficult for me to then do it, for my boys. Mm. You know what I mean? Mm. The only reason not the only reason I asked that because I know a few years ago when the brothers we were out in the neighborhood with the final call. Did I say in another episode as well?
Yeah, but you tell it again.
But it was just when we were talking about the Million Man March, and I was just so. Just like surprised that these young brothers had not heard about that. Almost, what was it at that time? Probably about 20, coming up on the 25 year anniversary of it. Then
it's almost 30.
No, 95.
It was
yeah.
90.
It'll be 30 and next year it'll be 30.
Yeah.
Wow. So around 5 years ago.
Y'all getting old.
And I was like, yo, I can't believe these cats have not even heard of the Million Man March. And I was like, things like that.
That's where we dropping the ball.
But right. see, that's the other thing. A lot of times, somebody might be introduced to something so early that they can't recall of hearing it because 1, you might be too young. 2, you might be so far in your own world, whatever you doing, that you really ignored this over here. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times, I think the percentage of people who really, really hadn't heard anything is probably real small.
Right.
Because they heard it, they just don't remember. Because I go through that a lot as myself. I was like, man, I ain't familiar with that. And then when they start talking it out, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember.
Oh, okay.
So I think a lot of that happens.
Right.
So I don't know.
And of course, I know it was beyond, they probably hadn't even been born yet or something crazy like that.
Can I add to that real quick? Because my sons told me about this because it's interesting because I got being that was resonated so much in my life, the march, we've talked about it over the years. And because Amir was only 2 months old when it happened. Mm-hmm. So it's always a story. I remember you were just born, and I was like, oh my God, I wish I could. So I just remember he was a baby when I went. And so, but over the years we talked about it, and they've gone to the Million Family March and the Million More March, so we've talked. And so they tell me their friends don't know about it. Like some of their friends don't know about the march. Because they're in their age range, right?
Right.
And I'm like, and they're like, man, wow, they're saying this because to them it's a part of their life. But then I thought about it and I was like, we did drop the ball majorly for sure. But then I thought about what you're supposed to know from 25 years ago and who tells you. So what was 25 years ago from when we were in high school? Was it the civil rights stuff, right?
Yeah.
Basically,
But that's one of the most major movements in American history.
World.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, so the Million Man March was huge. It wasn't a part of a thing going on worldwide that ended up being, but needless to say, it was the largest black gathering in probably recent world history, right? So, but I just saying, I'm wondering, some of it's like, that's why I said, what's the key thing? The key thing is, we got some major historical stuff that happened that our current generation of young people don't know anything about. They don't know about the Rodney King riots, the LA riots.
Well,
The same way that the Jews knew about the Holocaust.
yeah, because
reminding them of-
there was a line outside of that museum when it was in D.C.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm
And that's
like
not-
literally,
and that's not the music.
like literally as we talk, like we walking, the line is outside of that.
How
one.
old is that museum?
And
Do you
so,
know?
I'm not
It's
sure.
about, they opened, it ain't no more than like 6-7 years old.
Right. So
At the
so
moment, you know what I'm saying?
as I think about it, I'm like thinking.
Oh, his Holocaust one?
Yeah.
That one might be like 10 to 15 years old. 15.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just
like
curious,
15 more.
'cause I'm using.
You know, we gotta.
Had a long line.
So, I think the remedy for what we're talking about is a few things. We gotta instill and install a faith and a set of principles in our young people.
Mm-hmm.
We have to then share with them who and make them aware of who's in your corner, who's in your bed, who love you, son, who's gonna look out for you. What parent, cousin, grandparent, school teacher, coach, who's in your corner that you can pull on? All right, aunt, uncle, cousin, all of that stuff.
So, did I just answer what we forgot to teach?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's one of them.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we don't forgot to teach.
The importance of the nuclear family?
Yeah. you
Oh,
know.
in the village?
Man,
Did I just start something?
go ahead.
No, because I get we got a lot of family definitions and structures. Like John just said, he had a village. But there's been a devaluation of the concept of family, period, is what I mean when I say the nuclear family. Because really, everything now, even in school, you know, I went to school and they teach you about families in health class or social health. They say, these are the family types. You have a nuclear family. You have an extended family.
Yeah.
They teach you all
You
of
got
that
a
stuff
blended
now.
family.
Right now, it's like 8 charts. You see what I'm saying? So I get it, but I guess what I'm saying is, I think there's been a devaluation of the family structure and the importance. I'm gonna say there has been a devaluation of importance of a man and a woman in the household.
married, that's right.
And the impact shows that children that don't grow up with both of those genders are the ones we talking about in trouble. Generally speaking. And there are exceptions because there are same-sex couples killing it with children. And I get it.
Yeah.
But that's not the rule, that's the exception.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we try to I'm gonna get back to this point that I always make, man, and I'm sick of making it, but for real, I just believe it's at the core of it's a fundamental decay at the core of what we're talking about, and that is the materialism and chasing the bag and chasing the money and forgetting to teach values. And the value we are teaching is that it don't really matter what we do as long as we got some money. We can do whatever we want to do.
We do. Yeah.
And we keep sending that message to our young people. And when you I know people who've been to prison, and one of the things they talk about is just how brilliant and innovative those minds are, the brothers that are incarcerated. But you know what has always been striking to me is that the reason they're in there is because they were extremely ambitious and wanted more, and they just chose to take that energy in the wrong direction, And
you talk about the drug game most of the part for our generation.
Yeah, absolutely, for
yeah.
our generation, and what happened, with the prison industrial complex and the mass incarceration, and how the commerce of the drug business is what drove a lot in our generation to that illegal activity. And you were driven by the commerce, and so as a result of that, what? You driven by the commerce because we want all of these material things. So if I show you all these flashy, shiny things, but then I also don't expose you to an environment to get those in a legitimate way, or make you believe there's an opportunity to get that in a legitimate way, you will then seek other ways to get it. So that is the beginnings of what we have now.
So you talking about now? I'm going to take you a decade back though, because I don't think you can have that conversation absent the end of segregation with chasing the bag.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
The whole in your family, who I was always amazed, brother James was talking about, how you think about how would someone in our community been exposed to Malcolm X, for example. I don't know, except I'm always amazed when you tell me your family's connection to the Panthers.
Yeah.
And I need to ask that now. That was in the Ville. They were living in Charlottesville, or they were from somewhere else?
No.
They were connected from the Panthers from Charlottesville.
Yes, from Charlottesville, and my grandmother had a sister who was in D.C., and so those cousins were always going back and forth. So my mom and her brothers and all them, they were in D.C., close to the headquarters.
Okay.
Exposed to that. And then my family brought the Panther organization to the city of
So that's what I was getting ready to ask you. So they had a Panther chapter here.
Yeah. And it was my
Well,
grandma's
not here, but yeah.
It was
That's funny.
that man said the Panthers headquarters was with you.
That's at my grandma's house.
Hey yo, listen. Protect Winston at all costs. She been holding the movement down for decades, bro.
Because to touch on that, when I talked to my grandma one time, I'm like, Granny, you quiet and low. Now, obviously, she's 95 now. Ain't nobody fighting with that kind of energy no more, obviously. But I asked her what took her out of the movement. And her specific comment to me was, because one of my uncles was killed and lost to the movement. And her specific comment to me was, I already lost one child to that. I ain't got no more to give them.
Right.
And so that was her, perspective on it. Like, the price we paid as a family for that was just too much, was just way too much more than what, she was willing to continue to give. And so I understand that, now. And so, you see these people, you're like, man, these young people with all this energy and all this vigor coming to fight,
Right.
They're like, man, these old people getting soft, these old people getting weak, and they have no comprehension of the price the previous generation paid. But let me say this, a lot of that, and in my family, that subject is a touchy subject, right? We don't talk about it. So that's why some things don't get passed down from one generation to the next because of the trauma attached to it.
When we don't tell Winston's story, that matriarch story, when the community don't know that there's a 95-year-old black woman alive that gave up her family for this movement to help these babies around here that's now in Head Start when the Panthers started Head Start. Do you understand? You see?
Yeah.
And that's what, so when we just answered that, that's what's missing.
That is what's
These
missing.
babies don't know the power of what their ancestors did to afford them the freedom to enjoy what they're trying to enjoy. And therefore, you don't know your commitment to continue it. So I can do what I want to do. So it's just about me. Because I don't realize that to get that choice, people died and gave up their children.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. I was just in D.C. this past weekend, and I went to the African American History Museum.
Oh, word? Okay.
Yeah, and I recommend everybody go. It is one of the most amazing experiences. But when I left that museum and I came outside, I made a quick 90-second video. And it is touching on exactly what we're talking about right now. And I didn't know we was going to even talk about this. But when I made that video, what I said was, once you go in this building and once you see what's in here, you remove all doubt that your life could end up a nothing.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And that's the power of understanding the history and the legacy. That's why you build those buildings and show that history and teach these young people. Because once you know who you are and where you come from, you move different. And we rise to the level of our exposure. And so as we get exposed to information and knowledge, we start to move differently. You know, we all was exposed to the teaching. And when we got exposed to that information, it transformed our lives.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's really what that was about. You know, that's really what it was all about. So that's what we gotta pass down. And sometimes when you're trying to pass down this information, you got to force some people in your family to deal with some traumas that they probably don't want to deal with.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's important. It's very important. And you gotta have some conversations. Bro, it's probably cousins that are like, oh, we had another uncle? I can believe that they might even think that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Or walk away like, man, I don't know nothing about that
I
cat.
think the minister said one thing. He said, your pain is not your own pain. Your hurt is not your own hurt. God fashioned you for your people.
When you break that up, how can
Yeah.
you ever get the village? If the family's broken, how can you ever get the village, the community, or the greater area to come together?
Right.
And to thrive as well. We own more land in the 50s than we do now. We don't own a damn thing.
Wow.
We're just consumers.
There was no greater goal than the oppressor had than was to destroy the family, right?
Right.
And so if the family is destroyed, and now I remember William James that used to write for the newspaper when we started it.
Absolutely.
Do you remember we were sitting in there talking to him? I know you remember. We were sitting in there talking to him what's going on with this whole concept of multiculturalism and all of this stuff back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And he was a skeptic about it. He was like, it's game. You know what I mean? He said, you know what they doing? He said, all of this is about focusing you on all your individual rights.
Right.
You remembering this
That's
conversation?
good, yeah.
He said, they telling you, oh, you're an individual. You got the right to do this. You can choose and you can have this type of idea. You don't have to be monolithic. And that was where I came from Gates on that episode.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got to do all of that. He was like, next thing you know, you think you just an individual.
It's just me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just me.
Wow.
That's real good.
All my
It's just me and mine.
Yeah. I got mine.
And now, what do you mean, what's my duty to the black community? What do you mean, what's my responsibility to the poor? What do you mean, the village? I'm looking at all of these things. I ain't even in it no more. Because they have successfully made me think that I'm an individual American, that trumps my commitment to my familial and ancestral ties in a crumbling America at that.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I want to pivot right back to that economic piece because I ain't finished in the 60s. So when we integrated, we immediately, the whole concept, and we talked about the civil rights movement and those elders saying, yeah, it was an economic thing. We know there was no economic focus. And we also know that when Dr. King started talking about an economic focus to the government is when he was killed, saying the war in Vietnam was taking money away from the poor. And that's when he was assassinated, right? So we know he knew the game, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, the whole concept of Eldridge Cleaver, this is why I said the Panthers. That's how I got on the Panther thought. The white man's ice is colder.
Yeah.
He said this before integration happened, that we think the white man's ice is colder. The metaphor being, if you going to buy ice, you going to go buy his ice. Over the ice at the black store, he must got better ice.
Right.
Ice, same composition, right?
Yeah, there's ice.
We sick. So that bag chasing, we always, it want the money, but we want it to be like them. You understand what I'm saying? So when integration came, I want to go to their store. We shut down the department store, and it wasn't that we're like, why did we have to, it didn't have to be either or.
Right.
Do you want to go there?
The open up the integration fire, you should have the right to go. That don't mean we ran. We left all the damn stores, man. We gone. Oh, now,
Let me give you my money.
Now your little black suit that you sold me, my suit, I want the suit at H&M. And so now the mentality of keeping up with the Joneses and the bags is accelerated. We always had that in our community. But I'm talking about now we chasing the bags. So now these are parents that were the children when this happened. You see, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that idea, so then when we came along, everybody was like, hey man, you gotta go get that money.
Right.
You gotta go get that bag. You gotta go get it. And we lost. We lost.
Yeah.
I think another thing I was sitting over here thinking. Of course, I wasn't even born when this took place, but just you know how we hear prayer in schools and stuff, and taking prayer out of schools, and I think that was like a level of like setting the tone with people. Now they so offended by what somebody say, so you can't say all this different stuff because people are so offended. And I think what happens is when you try to share these thoughts with the community, people so worried about offending one another, and they don't want you to say anything to their children, and that's a big problem, because if you think I got the best interest and you think that I can add some value to your child, then why wouldn't you want me to say a word of wisdom or a kind thought to them to be able to better them? And so a lot of times we all parents, but I could talk to my son all day long. You come along, you say the same thing, but you say it in a different tone. Immediately, the light goes off.
Yeah. Hold on, time out. Please explain to him the metaphor for that. The seed. We were talking yesterday with brother.
Oh yeah, we talking about gardening, right? You plant the seed, you dig the hole, plant the seed, put some fresh dirt on it, water it, let the sun shine on it, water it, weed it, take care of it, right? And you tend to it, then you got to go do what you got to do. But sometimes when that plant comes out, somebody else is standing there. You know what I mean?
And getting all the credit.
And getting all the credit for all the work that you put in there. Right? And we come back to it, and he said, oh, thank you such and such for planting this into me, letting this grow out of me. And now as men, we got to understand we don't need all the credit. You know what I mean? As long as the lesson is implanted, instilled in you, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, going back to you talked about all of our parents integrated schools, right? And I always would joke, like, I think I'm the youngest dude that got beat in a public school. Got paddled.
Paddle.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beat and paddled. Right? And so, and what we're talking about, and I'm thinking about the school system, what you're saying, and the discipline within the community and the school system. Discipline without love, right? That produces discouragement and rebellion. You know what I'm saying? So if you discipline me, but you're trying to suppress me and snuff me out and tell me I know my place, rather than, no, I love you, but I'm putting you back on the track where you need to be. And so much of us has dealt with that. We didn't deal with the stuff that our grandparents dealt with or our forefathers dealt with, but we dealt with a lot of that. You know what I mean? In a different way.
Right.
You know.
No, and I was listening to Corey, and of course I was young in school, but I think that same thing was happening to me. You know, I had so much energy, they didn't know what to do with me. They wanted mom to dope me up and all that. Mom was like, "Nah, I ain't with that." You know, and that was a good thing. You know, because I mean we already see the side effect of what happened, but you know, right
because
now,
they don't love. They're like something wrong with him. He inferior anyway. Let me get this move.
And I'm distracting in class and all that stuff, and we other kids, students can't learn.
Did they call it ADD then?
No, they call it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Right,
know.
but I'm saying that's what they
Right.
call it now.
Yeah, I'm about to say I don't know.
I think they used to call it defiant behavior or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, something. I don't know. Needless to say that, you know, I had all this energy, and I mean, still got energy, you know, but you just know which way to direct it, you know.
Properly.
Yeah, it is. It is something. A lot of it, when you boils down to it, man, with that attention stuff, is overstimulation or multi-stimulation of the brain. Our children are exposed to so much stimulation, right? At a young age. Even I'm talking about the colors from the TVs and the electronics, which really the brain researchers say is too much, right? So then you sit them in school. So they've been at home. If you don't have parents that's making them read and taking them out from in front of the electronics and all that stuff all day, then when they go to school and you sit them down and all of a sudden I'm not overstimulated all the time, then it look like I can't pay attention. You can't keep my attention.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it looks like I can't compose myself or control myself. So now I got to control you.
Right.
And if I can't control you, sit over here, do this, all that isolation, then we need some dope.
Something that you always got to, as a teenager, you got to know how to, what's I'm saying, impose yourself appropriately.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Appropriately. When you're a man, you got to do what's needed to do in the appropriate time that it needs to be done. You know, sometimes this needs force. Sometimes this needs tenderness. You know, you got me thinking about a story where I was.
Men need to be trained by men. That's what we know. And so the whole thing, though, the whole idea is that this is the thing. The whole idea of management. This is why we got problems in schools with black boys. We got problems in school with black boys because they got a lot of energy, right?
Absolutely.
They got a lot of energy, and they're dealing with people that don't love them enough to be in pain with them through that energy to help them regulate it, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're told, so what the parent is told is, he got too much energy, he has a disability. There's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
So the federal government has a law in place. Because he has a disability, I can send you to a doctor and you can go get him medicated to manage his energy that I don't love him enough to manage. And you can go put him on dope. And you know what? But since he get a disability, I'm going to send you a $600 check a month or more because you got a child that has a disability. So you got an incentive to keep him on Ritalin, on this, on that, because if he ain't on it, that check gonna stop coming because you got a child with a disability, right? And so his aggression is muted by speed and narcotics and dope, right? And when he get to the point where he can't get off of the dope, and they've been on it from 8 to 16, and we talking about adults that's addicted to perks, and we got babies that's been on it for 10 years, and then they get off it, and you wonder why they don't give a shit. That's what we dealing with, man. And we let them do it. We know, I know this. We fight it. I'm talking about collective. We letting them. We talking about what's going on, and we watching Palestinians deal with what people calling a genocide in our eyes, right? And we should all be in pain about it. But we allowing the slow death
of our community,
of our village.
Of our village. Yes, sir.
Is expose them to places like museums.
Right. Yes.
Where they walk in there and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, what's that? What's that? On a real superficial level, I remember when I went to the NFL, Canton, Ohio Hall of Fame.
Oh, I thought you played in the league. The way you paused just now.
Oh, yeah.
I went to the league.
But it was in this
He's
moment.
not in the Hall of Fame.
Now, in this moment, I realized exactly why you take your kids to museums and stuff like that. Because we in the Hall of Fame and we looking at the bus. And Corey looks at the bus and said, "Hey, Dad, they named this guy named after the video game." He's talking about Madden.
Yeah,
I'm sick. I'm sick right now.
That's exactly what he said. This guy named after the video game. And I just chuckled. I said, "No, son, the video game named after this guy. And that's why he's here. And that's why you're here. You know, that's John Madden." And we started talking about, boom, the light went off in my head.
To them, it's just Madden.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy about that?
There was
It's just freedom.
Order of what's
Yeah.
What'd you say?
To them, it's just freedom. I'm just free. It's just mad. It's just, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
He don't know the price. That's
Right,
the point.
exactly. And so we have to expose them to podcasts. We have to expose them to books. Think about the books you had your boys reading.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right.
Think about the places we went, the vacations we took, all of this stuff. And when you're in another country and you get to see another group of people and how they live it, like all of this stuff is shaping their minds. And this is how we avoid what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that we don't. So ultimately, we sitting here talking about what happened. The reason we having this podcast is because our children have had a level of success. And it's not an accident that we pretty much went 12 for 12. How we go 12 for 12? 13 for 13, really, when you count your daughter.
baby girl,
12 for
yeah.
12 with the boys.
girl.
You know, 12 for 12 with the boys, one girl, 13 for 13. That's not an accident. What did we do? What we did was what we talk about
The
right
village.
now.
Yep, you
Hey,
sure
this-
you
this
right.
What
what
we
I
did
wanna
is what
talk
we
about,
talking
too,
about. And that's what we want other people to do.
Amir had me laughing because you talk about the museum, right? And I'm one of them people, I can't stand docents, man. I'm like anti-me. I don't want nobody to walk me through the museum and tell me what's.
right.
It drives me crazy. But my question, when you went, did you do the whole museum that day?
No,
because you
just 2
can't do it.
floors. Yeah.
People need to know that if you're going to D.C. to the museum, African American culture, go 2 days. Because I could only get through 2 floors. Couldn't even make it to the last floor where the
Some people
ship
don't want,
is.
you know, some people don't want to read, Corey. They just want to walk through it.
No, but I'm talking about
But
just
I know,
walking through and looking
yeah,
around.
yeah.
It's a lot.
We only made 2 floors.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. But anyway, so the Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore, right? Have you ever been there?
I haven't.
Bro,
My wife been there.
Man, listen, they got a slave ship down in that joint, right? And the brutality of slavery, if you want your children to get exposed to the brutality of slavery, take them to the Blacks and Wax Museum. You walk downstairs into the slave ship and it's dark and creepy, and they got the stories about how the slave master sold cats into a woman's stomach. And the cats fighting their way out, you know, or tied the horses, you know, all the wild, violent stuff they did to it.
Medieval stuff.
And they show how a simulation of the body stacked. It's eerie, right? So my kids probably have been there 4 or 5 times. You know what I'm saying? Because first of all, I lived in Baltimore for a second, and so I knew about it because I'd taken students on a field trip. So when they were young, hey, we going to Blacks and Wax. But anyway, he came to me the other day. He said, "Dad, man," he said, "I got a kinship with some of my boys." He says, "A group of us, man, we all just agreed. If your parents took you to Blacks and Wax Museum, it's something different about you."
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
And these are people he met in different walks of life.
Yeah.
In his fraternity or different friends. I have to get him to clarify if it's all fraternity or not.
Yeah.
But they just happen to stumble upon, bro, you went to that joint too.
Yeah.
Man, they said, if you seen that, you got a kinship like that, man, because of that experience, right? And so then I'm gonna end with this, because I think in terms of strategies, man, I got something helpful right here. In addition to what y'all said. Think about, when I talked about the schools, man, and how we know a lot of people, American schools are suffering and students suffer. So a lot of people say, you know what, I'm just going to homeschool.
Yeah.
Because it's so bad, it's not a community for my child. It's not safe for my child. They're not getting educated. It's not a community. I'm taking them out. by any means necessary. So people started homeschooling students in isolation and recognized that they needed a social interaction. So they started building homeschool networks.
Right.
And so I'm teaching my child at home, you teaching your child. Then at 12 o'clock, we meet up and we go to the museum and do expeditionary learning. And we go to the park and we do recess. So
Or
meet
we
at the
find a
gym.
private school that they can play on that sports team.
And then they play on that team. But my
Yeah.
point is, they live in different places. So when we talk about the village, we got to talk about how to solve this in the context that we don't live in proximity like that anymore necessarily.
Right.
And we live in different places, especially those of us that have, we're in a professional world, you've gone into the suburbs and all of that, and you're not concentrated in a black community. We know what need to happen there. We need to all hands on deck in the hood.
Right.
We know what to do with that. All of us need to give up some time and adopt 2 children that we're going to give our time to outside of our children and help put village principles in them. We all need to do that. Right. But in this suburban world, we need to create networks. We need to create networks of experiences that simulate the village. You know what I'm saying? And that way, since we fragmented and or whatever, we can still come together, and our children still got a community like Amir has of people that didn't grow up around him, but got kindred experiences.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To help their collective identity. It's the B2M crew.
Yes, sir.
Chopping it up, man, about how we are ensuring that we pass down the critical lessons that have helped our ancestors survive this 400-year journey. And what's missing now, because we see a lot of pain in our people. I don't even know what percentage it is in the country. Somebody we can get the phones out. What percentage of black families end up in a divorce right now, for example?
In divorce?
What?
You had to be married to get divorced.
Yeah, how many single parents?
True. Fact,
85,
fact.
I think it's something like 80-some% of student people in the court system come from a single parent household. Low reading rates, murder rates out the roof right now in major metropolitan areas. Early teenagers doing carjackings.
Wealth
Black
gap.
teenagers using
Academic
pills
gap.
and fentanyl and everything, gambling, everything.
Got
The
it.
fabric of our community is in pain, right?
Yeah.
And we keep judging these young people. We keep saying, look at you. What y'all gonna do? Y'all not listening. What did we not do?
Right. That's the question.
That's the question.
Wow. Yeah, that's real. And the first thing I think about is like, I'm from the country, right? And I think about, again, your family, your village, your immediate community build out from that, right? And so, hey, I just grew up with my mother only and only knowing one side of my family. However, that was a huge family, right? And I can get off the same school bus at my grandma's house, my great-grandma's house, 3 great aunts' house, cousin house, without even changing school buses. And so, you know what I'm saying? That's how big it is.
That's 4 notes going back in the day. Oh, you need a note to get off on all these different stuff.
and including our church, right? In the community. And so there's a level of understanding that this is how you conduct yourself. This is how you carry yourself. In church, outside the church, inside the neighborhood. And people hear those stories all the time, but it was true. It was a certain level of accountability that I had to have.
Right.
Right. And now, and we used to all go to school, and we went to school with cousins. I always had a cousin that went to school with. We would joke like, "What are white folks' cousins at?" They ain't no cousins.
Right.
So now we're spread out. We got 1 out of 5 that live at home. My kids didn't go to school with none of their cousins.
Right.
And so where's their village? So my how I grew up with my level of home life, even though there was no father there versus their level was different, right? I'm there, but they don't have the same community that I have.
They didn't have the village.
They don't have the village, right?
Wow.
But they got you.
Right.
Wow.
But then I'm still a divorced family, but all of those other dynamics playing in place.
Then I'm saying every black man sitting here, including myself, I'm saying we selfish then. I'm saying that we think we're good fathers, but we selfish. You know why? Because we said we did our job when we did our job in our house.
Right.
And we didn't commit to the community and help build a village because we stayed isolated.
I'm guilty.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not guilty.
I'm guilty.
Why are you not guilty?
I'm not guilty of
Why,
this.
well,
20 years.
I'm not
well,
guilty
well,
of
hold
this.
up. Time out. Hearing you say is, I understand how you feel. And I felt that way before.
What'd you find out?
But what I found is that even though you individually are the village, and we all know this, I was making a general statement about the black man. Hey, just so everybody knows, my brother taught me a tactic on how to make sure I'm saying things kind and gently. And what's the method again? In a compassionate way.
Feel, felt,
felt,
found.
and found.
Yeah.
Do I get kudos?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was the Black American family divorce rate is 31%.
You gotta be really.
Yeah.
You know what
What's
that
the marriage
shows, though?
rate
That's crazy. That shows that our divorce rate is lower than the national average, but ain't enough of us getting married.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's out of 1,000.
When we get together, we know how to keep it together better than most Americans. But it's too many single parents. What we can do to try to get it back? It's just 4 brothers with 13 children, 12 sons, 5 brothers, 13 children, 12 sons, chopping it up. I was on the 40 years part. I get that over 40 years, chopping it up about some issues that we hope are relevant to parents. Joaquin, you got something to take us out with?
Yes, sir. It is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. Peace.
Stop until I'm winning. I'ma show 'em how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I finish with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute. And I won't stop until I'm winning. They don't want me in the office 'cause I